Lost civilizations, otherworldly intrigues, and sacred mysteries. When we consider our level of understanding about human history, it is often the overlooked fragments and lesser-known narratives that compel us to reevaluate everything from a fresh perspective. These hidden gems of the past serve as reminders that our knowledge is ever incomplete, that for every grand achievement we laud, there might be another layer of complexity lurking just beneath the surface. Throughout various epochs and locales, people have created advanced infrastructures, worshipped unknown deities, and recorded events that seem almost impossible by today's standards. From the clever hydraulic feats of ancient Egyptian builders along the winding banks of the Nile, to the labyrinthine cave systems tucked away beneath the rolling hills of the English countryside, each testament reveals a nuanced tapestry of innovation and enigmas. Delving deeper, we confront the possibility that there might be entire civilizations like those rumored to have thrived in the once lush Sahara that vanished without leaving behind more than faint traces of their stories. In some cases, evidence points toward cultural or technological connections so advanced that modern scholarship still struggles to explain them within the traditional frameworks of archaeology. One such topic that invariably sparks debate is whether our ancient forebears actually had encounters with extraterrestrial beings. Did alien visitors traveling light years across space once make contact with human societies and perhaps alter the course of our development? Critics argue that such theories often lack solid proof, yet the recurrence of remarkably similar myths across diverse cultures suggests that these stories arise from more than mere coincidence. The notion of advanced beings descending from the heavens is reflected in the religious texts of ancient Persia, depicted in the cosmic epics of Mesopotamia, hinted at in the sprawling Sanskrit narratives of India, and even noted in local folklore from remote corners of Africa. Skeptics caution us against conflating myth with history, emphasizing the role of human creativity and the universal desire to personify natural forces or inexplicable phenomena. Still, the repeated motifs of celestial visitors and messages left by sky gods persist, stoking our curiosity about humanity's place in the cosmic theater. Even when we shift our gaze toward more grounded mysteries like whispered legends of subterranean worlds, or puzzling inscriptions etched onto stone tablets in remote provinces, the sense that we have only scratched the surface of Earth's wonders remains potent. Some researchers dedicate their lives to unraveling these riddles, painstakingly translating ancient glyphs or analyzing fragments of pottery in hopes of piecing together broader historical truths. Their efforts have unearthed stories that challenge conventional views. As we revisit narratives of star-aligned temples or examine megalithic structures that appear to resonate with precise astronomical patterns, it can feel as though a grand puzzle is laid out before us, one that might connect humanity's earliest ambitions with an unbroken chain of cosmic curiosity. It is within this overarching context that we meet some of history's most captivating unsolved questions. Are we simply creative storytellers weaving elaborate mythologies to cope with life's uncertainties? Or is there a kernel of reality, a tangible link to something beyond Earth's confines that shaped our cultural evolution? Whatever stance one takes, these enduring enigmas encompassing everything from improbable technology to cryptic artifacts suggest there's still much to explore. Now let us embark on a journey that delves into some of these fascinating mysteries, beginning with the perplexing saga of the Dropa stones. In the late 1930s, an expedition led by the archaeologist Dr. Chi Putut ventured deep into the uncharted peaks of China's Bayanha Mountains in what is now the western province of Qinghai. By all conventional wisdom, this remote locale was not expected to yield discoveries that would upend our understanding of ancient history. However, when Dr. Putut's team pushed into a cluster of man-made caves, they encountered tombs containing skeletal remains unlike any previously documented. Lying in orderly rows, these skeletons had oversized skulls paired with tiny wiry bodies, an anatomical composition that baffled experts familiar with ancient human physiology. Right beside the skeletons lay 7 16-stone discs uniformly crafted with a hole in the center, each circled by spiral grooves extending to the outer rim. At first glance, these spiral designs seemed merely decorative, possibly signifying ritual objects or items for funeral rites. A closer look, however, unveiled a more astonishing revelation. Under magnification, researchers noticed that each spiral was composed of minuscule symbols, neither purely pictorial like Egyptian hieroglyphs, nor resembling the cuneiform writing of Mesopotamia. Instead, they formed a wholly unique script prompting heated discussions about its origin. The archaeological community was divided. Some hailed the discovery as a window into a lost civilization, while others remained skeptical, attributing the lines to natural weathering or to a lesser-known local script. In the 1960s, a professor at the Beijing Academy of Ancient Studies, Wam River, claimed to have deciphered these cryptic inscriptions, concluding that they chronicled the misfortunes of an otherworldly group known as the Drupa. According to his controversial thesis, these beings had arrived on Earth more than 12,000 years ago, after a crash landing left them stranded. Allegedly, they coexisted with local populations, adapting gradually to life on Earth due to an inability to repair their spacecraft. Yet establishment figures vehemently opposed these interpretations, viewing them as detrimental to scientific rigor and national pride. Professor Wam River faced such professional derision that he eventually left China, ultimately passing away in Japan, his work largely dismissed by mainstream archaeology. Despite official skepticism, curiosity regarding the Drupa stones persisted. In 1968, Soviet researcher Vladimir Zaitsev examined a handful of the discs, discovering an unexpectedly high concentration of cobalt, an element not easily processed using prehistoric technology. Even more baffling experiments indicated that the stones could conduct electricity to some extent. This possibility of advanced knowledge hidden in their composition fueled a new wave of debate. A few years later, an Austrian engineer named Ernst Wegerer visited a museum in Banpo, China, where 2 Drupa discs were publicly displayed. Attempting to photograph the tiny script under bright lighting, he found the camera flash obliterated the minute etchings on film. Not long after those discs disappeared from the museum, and official channels either denied their existence or insisted they had been destroyed, further intensifying suspicions of a cover-up. Counter-arguments soon arose, positing that these artifacts might be ancient bicircular jade or stone discs used in ritual contexts, thus entirely terrestrial in nature. Detractors asked how an isolated mountain culture could possibly possess knowledge of extraterrestrials, or why there would be no parallel record in more prominent historical sources. Yet years of rumor and clandestine stories continued. The enduring lore of the Drupa people remains an enigmatic footnote in the annals of archaeology, highlighting just how quickly a sensational claim can capture the public imagination and spark endless debate. Even now, we don't know where all of the discs might be or what the original script truly signified. The Dropa stones endure as one of those vexing puzzles that refuse to be tidily resolved. Continuing our exploration of celestial connections, we move westward to the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia. This region, set between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, has long been celebrated as one of humanity's earliest cradles of civilization. Among the pantheon of gods that graced its ancient narratives, none intrigue both scholars and esoteric researchers alike more than the Anunnaki. Etched on sun-baked clay tablets in cuneiform script, the story of the Anunnaki transcends typical mythology, bearing a weighty significance in the theological, social, and daily life of the Sumerians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. In Mesopotamian lore, the Anunnaki were direct descendants of the primordial deities and the sky, and Kai, the earth. Within this divine family, notable figures include Enki, a benevolent and wise god credited with imparting knowledge to humankind, and his counterpart, Enlil, a more volatile deity capable of summoning cataclysmic floods to wipe out civilizations deemed unworthy. The goddess Inanna likewise held a distinctive role as a dual embodiment of fertility and warfare, embodying both love and the destructive power of the battlefield. For the ancient Mesopotamians, these stories were far from mere entertainment. They were an attempt to explain natural phenomena and articulate humanity's origins. According to some versions, it was the Anunnaki who sculpted humans from clay to serve as their labor force, shaping the cosmic order that influenced every aspect of daily life, from agriculture to rites of passage. However, the modern age has introduced a radically different interpretation of the Anunnaki, largely through the works of Zecharia Sitchin. In his famed series, The 12th Planet, Sitchin proposed that the Anunnaki were not mythic gods, but extraterrestrials from a far-off world called Nibiru. This planet, he theorized, follows a long elliptical orbit that brings it into contact with Earth every few thousand years. The impetus behind the Anunnaki's visits, Sitchin claimed, was to mine gold and other minerals for reasons that remain speculative, perhaps, to sustain their own technological or atmospheric needs. To streamline their operations, he argued these alien visitors genetically modified early hominids, effectively creating modern humans as a workforce. Predictably, the academic consensus balks at such claims. Experts in cuneiform and ancient Near Eastern history assert that Sitchin's translations and interpretations are speculative, at best lacking philological or archaeological corroboration. Critics highlight that the original Mesopotamian texts do not explicitly mention aliens or advanced technology, viewing these ideas as imaginative expansions on ambiguous references. Nevertheless, supporters of the ancient astronaut theory maintain a devout belief in Sitchin's work, pointing to perceived irregularities in ancient texts. Depictions on bas-reliefs that they interpret as advanced machines, and the puzzling leaps in human progress that coincide with such mythic accounts. In sum, the Anunnaki's story underscores the duality of ancient myth, both an anthropological mirror of early human cognition and a potential blueprint for something well beyond our present understanding. Whether extraterrestrial or purely divine in ancient minds, the Anunnaki remain integral to Mesopotamian heritage and to broader debates on how knowledge, technology, and life itself may have been influenced in a prehistoric epoch. While mainstream archaeology stands firm in its skepticism, The legends continue to enthrall anyone captivated by the possibility that we might share a more cosmic heritage than we ever imagined. From the heart of the Middle East, we now traverse to the vibrant Indian subcontinent, famed for millennia-old sacred texts brimming with cosmic battles and divine interventions. One of the most persistent mysteries here revolves around the concept of Vimana, the legendary flying chariots described in texts such as the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, as well as in various Puranic sources. In these narratives, gods and sometimes heroic mortals travel vast distances in these airborne vehicles, sometimes moving not just across Earth, but through different dimensions or realms of existence. Vimana are depicted in a dazzling array of forms, from intricately ornamented, multi-storied palaces that glide effortlessly in the skies to more functional machines outfitted for epic aerial combat. Perhaps the most striking feature of these descriptions is how uncannily they parallel modern conceptions of aircraft centuries before the Wright brothers ever took flight. Ancient Indian literature even includes references to propulsion systems, heat-generated power, and aerodynamic structures that to the modern eye resemble scientific schematics. A text called the Vaimanika Shastra, attributed to sage Bharadvaja, purports to detail the technical underpinnings of flying craft, discussing metals resistant to extreme heat and complexities of onboard instrumentation. However, its legitimacy remains contested. Many scholars argue that the manuscript may be a more recent composition, possibly from the early 20th century, retroactively framed as ancient wisdom. Critics question inconsistencies in the text's language and the lack of supporting archaeological evidence, contending that the existence of aircraft thousands of years ago defies the broader material record of the Indus and Vedic cultures. Nonetheless, the notion of advanced crafts has found fervent proponents within the sphere of ancient astronaut theorists who suggest that references to chariots of the gods are likely attempts by early humans to describe genuine encounters with interstellar visitors. According to this perspective, the deities in the epic narratives might have been technologically advanced beings from beyond Earth, deploying Vimana as part of their exploration or stewardship of the planet. They highlight parallels between these Sanskrit epics and other mythic corpuses, from the winged chariots of Greek lore to the flying vessels in certain Native American traditions. Are these recurring motifs solely the product of universal human imagination, or do they suggest a collective memory of something extraordinary? On a more academic note, many Indologists remind us that Indian myths have always blended the cosmic and the terrestrial, using metaphorical imagery to elevate moral and spiritual lessons. The floating palaces could symbolize higher states of consciousness, transcendence over earthly constraints, and the divine nature of cosmic principles. In that view, using mechanical or quasi-scientific imagery was simply a method to demonstrate the grandeur and omnipotence of the gods. Some historians suspect these stories reflect the grand scale of Indian warfare and technological ingenuity. For instance, the use of mechanical siege towers or advanced metallurgy, which might have been mythologized over centuries. Still, the enigma lingers. Vimana remain a cornerstone of Indian cultural identity, captivating imaginations well beyond the subcontinent. They challenge us to reevaluate historical narratives and the boundaries between myth and reality. Whether literal flying machines or poetic devices, Vimana, exemplify how ancient narratives can encapsulate both spiritual aspirations and technological curiosity. Continuing with astonishing possibilities in ancient times, we encounter the concept of ancient atomic war, an idea that at first glance seems patently absurd. How could early civilizations, presumably armed with little more than bronze weapons or iron swords, possess destructive power rivaling modern nuclear devices? Yet some fringe scholars highlight descriptions from the Mahabharata, as well as findings in archaeological sites, such as Mohenjo-Daro, that imply a cataclysmic event took place thousands of years ago, bearing a resemblance to nuclear devastation. In the epic Mahabharata, there is a vivid account of a weapon so dreadful that it shone like 1,000 suns and afflicted the population with severe ailments, a narrative that many equate with the effects of radiation poisoning. When archaeologists in the 1920s and 1930s uncovered the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley, present-day Pakistan, they discovered skeletons littered in the streets unburied as though some sudden, catastrophic event had occurred. Moreover, certain layers of the ruins appeared to show evidence of vitrification's materials fused or melted at extremely high temperatures. Tests on human remains indicated levels of radioactivity that stood out from typical background readings. Enthusiasts of the ancient atomic war hypothesis argue that these clues align too closely with nuclear phenomena to be chalked up to mere chance. However, mainstream archaeologists propose more conventional explanations. One theory posits that invading forces or epidemics could have caused rapid mass deaths with no time for burials. Alternatively, a massive fire, likely fueled by a combination of dense urban structures, warehouses of flammable materials, and strong winds, could cause localized melting of bricks, which might look superficially similar to nuclear vitrification. Furthermore, the radiation anomalies could stem from natural sources or geological processes that concentrated radioactive minerals in certain areas. This divide is emblematic of the tension between sensational interpretations and established academic rigor. While it's captivating to imagine advanced ancient technology, experts consistently caution that extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. The Indus civilization is widely admired for its urban planning, drainage systems, and trade networks, but no robust evidence of advanced weaponry, let alone nuclear bombs, has been established. Critics of the ancient atomic war scenario liken it to a version of pseudo-archaeology that underestimates the complexities and achievements of ancient societies in favor of sensational narrative. Yet the story continues to draw attention, partly because it compels us to look beyond the typical constraints of historical timelines. Could human ingenuity, as occasionally postulated, have reached extraordinary heights in sporadic pockets, only to vanish as catastrophes erased such knowledge? Or are these theories simply modern reinterpretations of mythic hyperbole? Exaggerations meant to underscore moral lessons about the ravages of war. The debate is unlikely to die anytime soon, given our collective fascination with lost civilizations and hidden technologies. Ultimately, the idea of ancient atomic war reiterates one of the most compelling themes in historical inquiry. How much do we truly know about the capabilities of those who came before us? And how many chapters of human achievement might still be concealed beneath millennia of dust? Turning from hypothetical cataclysms to biblical lore, we arrive at one of the most iconic flood legends of all time, Noah's Ark. While many people treat it as a purely religious or allegorical tale, there are those who tirelessly seek physical proof that an ancient vessel once harbored animal species during a global deluge. In eastern Turkey lies the Durupınar Formation, perched more than 6,500 feet above sea level. When viewed from above, this geological feature bears an uncanny resemblance to the outline of a colossal ship 530 feet long or so by some measurements. Discovered by Turkish Air Force pilot İlhan Durupınar in 1959, aerial photographs of the site ignited global interest. Over the following decades, a series of explorers and scientists, some devout believers, others simply curious, examined the formation, using methods ranging from basic surveying to advanced ground-penetrating radar. The latter detected apparently regular grid-like patterns beneath the surface. Critics argue these patterns could be geological anomalies, stratifications common to a region shaped by volcanic and seismic forces. Yet supporters interpret them as potential remnants of structural compartments, consistent with a large ship-like construct. Recent investigations have uncovered organic materials that appear to be petrified wood, along with marine shells and clay deposits inconsistent with the current arid environment. A further curiosity is the repeated observation that each autumn vegetation within the outline withers sooner than the surrounding grass, hinting at something beneath altering the ground's microclimate. Supporters of the Ark theory are convinced these clues converge into a compelling narrative. Thousands of years ago, a massive flood carried the Ark to this mountainous region, leaving behind an enduring imprint for modern humans to rediscover. Geologists, however, often attribute the ship-like form to natural erosion and the presence of mud flows that shape the hills into unusual contours. They point out that the region's dynamic geology can produce illusions of artificial structures, and that smaller localized floods in ancient times could account for shell fragments found at higher elevations. Moreover, the region has historically been a nexus of mountain-building processes, and the discovery of occasional marine deposits is not remarkable when considering that parts of Anatolia were once underwater in prehistoric eras. Whatever one's stance, the Durupınar Formation continues to intrigue explorers from different backgrounds. It stands as a geological puzzle for some, a possible religious testament for others, and a magnet for adventurous spirits drawn to the prospect of unearthing biblical heritage. Whether the Ark indeed rests here remains unconfirmed, but the ongoing quest highlights humanity's deep yearning to connect mythic accounts with tangible remains. If one day science definitively proves the existence of a wooden hull beneath these rocks, it would undeniably shift global perspectives on religious texts and ancient history. Until then, we are left with questions that blend faith science and the enduring human hunger to authenticate our oldest stories. Beneath the age-old streets of Jerusalem lies a very different but equally evocative puzzle, the Siloam Tunnel, also known as Hezekiah's Tunnel. Dating back nearly 2,700 years, it was carved directly through bedrock to transport fresh water from the Gihon Spring to the Pool of Siloam. Historically, this subterranean passage was a defensive marvel. When the Assyrians threatened the city, King Hezekiah recognized that controlling the water supply was paramount to Jerusalem's survival. By constructing this tunnel, he ensured citizens could access water without exposing themselves to enemy attacks. What stirs the imagination, however, is how the tunnel was engineered without modern surveying tools or the ability to communicate between the two digging teams. Remarkably, they started at opposite ends and managed to meet almost exactly in the middle, leaving behind a subtle zigzag that reveals the trial and error process they used to align their excavation. To stand at this junction is to bear witness to ancient problem-solving ingenuity chisel marks from both directions still scar the walls, commemorating the labor and precision of those long-gone workers. Today, visitors can walk through the narrow confines, often wading through knee-deep water that continues to flow as it has for millennia. The tunnel's moderate slope, less than 30 centimeters difference across its full length, demonstrates how carefully the ancient engineers calibrated water flow. The Siloam inscription found on the tunnel wall narrates the moment the diggers heard each other's voices through the stone. It's a poignant detail that bridges the centuries, making us feel as though we can almost hear the echoes of their excitement. Recent archaeological work has uncovered additional markings and inscriptions, using high-resolution imaging sparking fresh rounds of speculation about hidden details or political significance once carved into these walls. Some hypothesize that there could be undiscovered side chambers or older layers of the tunnel. The broader historical context also invites reflection. The biblical narrative records King Hezekiah's reign as a time of religious reform and defensive fortifications in Jerusalem. This remarkable engineering feat underscores his strategic acumen. To this day, the Siloam Tunnel remains an enduring testament to the intersection of faith engineering and survival. For those intrigued by biblical archaeology, it offers tangible proof that matches the scriptural account. For engineering historians, it stands as a prime example of how necessity and creativity can drive innovations that rival modern achievements. Above all, it symbolizes the resilience of a city that has continually reinvented and fortified itself in the face of conquests and sieges. Even in our modern era, with advanced technology at our disposal, the dedication and skill of those who once carved through solid rock to secure water for Jerusalem remain a source of awe. Now, having explored a range of mysterious marvels, from alleged extraterrestrial artifacts to biblical underpinnings, we shift our focus to the second phase of our examination: relics, controversies, and the interplay between legend and tangible proof. Relics, legends, and hints of the unexplained. Our journey through enigmatic corners of ancient history now leads us to one of the most hotly debated objects ever to emerge from the realm of biblical archaeology, the James Ossuary. Discovered, or at least made public in 2002, this small limestone box might, according to some, serve as the only physical relic directly linked to Jesus Christ. An Aramaic inscription on its side reads, "James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus." From the moment the ossuary surfaced, it sparked a maelstrom of controversy, with researchers, theologians, and collectors clashing over its authenticity and implications. The ossuary's proprietor, Oded Golan, maintained that he had purchased it decades earlier without realizing its significance. The potential importance of the box was first recognized by linguist André Lemaire, who claimed the inscription style and linguistic form fitted a 1st century CE context. For devout Christians, the very idea that it might belong to James the brother or close relative of Jesus was momentous, an echo of one of the most foundational figures in early Christian communities. The ossuary quickly became a cultural and religious sensation, fueling debates about the historical Jesus and the New Testament's reliability. However, scholars at the Israel Antiquities Authority grew suspicious about the latter part of the inscription, specifically the phrase "brother of Jesus," asserting that it might have been added in modern times to increase the artifact's value. Forensic studies of the patina inside the engraved letters yielded conflicting results. Some experts concluded that it matched the box's natural aging process, suggesting the entire inscription was ancient. Others believed the patina could have been artificially introduced, highlighting what they saw as subtle discrepancies in carving techniques. The matter escalated into a high-profile legal case. After a lengthy court battle ending in 2012, Golan was acquitted due to insufficient evidence of forgery, yet scholarly opinion remains fragmented. Even within theological circles, the James Ossuary raises questions about the role of physical evidence in faith traditions. Some believers contend that tangible objects confirming biblical accounts are a boon for religious conviction. Others caution that relying too heavily on archaeological proof can distract from the spiritual essence of Scripture. Meanwhile, historians of early Christianity wonder if this box, if genuine, bolsters the argument that Jesus had a historical family circle in a form that closely aligns with canonical Gospels. In effect, the James Ossuary personifies the juncture where faith, history, and commerce converge. Whether one views it as a genuine relic or a cunning forgery, the commotion it stirred reveals a public eager for touchstones to the distant past. Perhaps more fascinating is how a small artifact can inflame debates that cut across academic, religious, and cultural lines, capturing imaginations worldwide. Regardless of the final verdict, the James Ossuary's saga underscores a truth about biblical archaeology. Every purported discovery can shape or challenge our collective narrative, reaffirming that the quest to understand ancient religious movements remains as vibrant and contested as ever. Symbols often capture the spiritual and political aspirations of entire nations, and one particularly understated object that wields profound influence is the Stone of Destiny. Also called the Stone of Scone, this unadorned block has been a cornerstone, literally and metaphorically, of royal ceremonies for centuries. From its early mention as the Pillow of Jacob in medieval lore, to its eventual resting place in London's Westminster Abbey, the stone exemplifies how objects can accumulate vast layers of symbolic weight. According to tradition, the biblical patriarch Jacob used the stone as a pillow when he experienced a divine vision of angels ascending and descending a celestial ladder. Over time, the relic supposedly traveled to Egypt, Sicily, and Spain before arriving in Ireland, where it served as the coronation seat for ancient Irish monarchs. Scottish narratives subsequently detail how the stone moved to Scone Abbey and became integrally associated with the enthronement of Scottish kings. In 1296, Edward the Third of England carried it off as spoils of war, embedding it beneath the coronation chair at Westminster Abbey. From that point forward, monarchs of England and later Great Britain underwent coronation ceremonies with the stone placed under their seat, signifying dominion over Scotland. Modern science, however, has debunked the notion that the Stone of Destiny comes from the Middle East. Geological tests confirm that the stone's composition matches quarries in the vicinity of Scone in Scotland rather than any region of biblical significance. The discrepancy between legend and lab analysis has done little to diminish its ceremonial importance. Even after centuries in London, Scottish nationalism pushed for its repatriation, and in 1996 the British government finally returned the stone to Edinburgh Castle. The gesture was seen as an attempt at reconciliation, though the agreement stipulates that the stone must be made available for future coronations in England, an arrangement that indeed played out in 2023 during the coronation of King Charles III. Despite its seemingly humble stature, a plain rectangular block, this single piece of rock has been central to questions of sovereignty and unity in the British Isles. For many Scots, its forced removal embodied cultural subjugation, while its eventual return symbolized a reawakening of Scottish pride. On the other hand, skeptics who champion the original biblical legend suggest that what rests in Scotland might be a replica with the genuine stone hidden away centuries ago. Whether or not such rumors have merit, the enduring fascination with the Stone of Destiny underscores our innate human desire to ground political and spiritual legitimacy in tangible objects. Ultimately, the stone story reminds us that history and myth often intertwine to create traditions that persist into the modern era. Even in an age of scientific rationalism, the power of such relics resonates far beyond their material form. They become focal points for collective memory identity and ongoing debates about national heritage. In that sense, the Stone of Destiny is more than just geology. It is a silent witness to ongoing struggles over kingship autonomy and faith, an object that continues to invite reflection on how legends shape our present. Shifting our gaze from terrestrial relics to the skies, we encounter a 16th century phenomenon that defies conventional explanation. On April 14, 1561, residents of Nuremberg, Germany, looked heavenward to witness a spectacle they would never forget. The dawn skies seemingly filled with an array of mysterious flying shapes. Chronicled by local newspapers and immortalized by the woodcut artist Hans Glaser, these shapes included glowing spheres, cylindrical rods, crosses and arcs of light engaging in what observers described as an aerial conflict. Some of these entities appeared to collide in midair, while others plummeted groundward in a hail of smoke, leaving the onlookers in stunned awe and fear. At the time, Europe was steeped in religious tension and rife with theological speculation, so unusual events in the sky were immediately interpreted as celestial portents. The local broadsheet urged readers to see the occurrence as a divine warning to repent from sin. Glaser's woodcut, now iconic among UFO enthusiasts, remains one of the earliest recorded depictions of mass sightings that defy immediate rationalization. Yet the question persists: what exactly did the people of Nuremberg witness in that springtime dawn? Contemporary scientists propose various natural explanations. One is that atmospheric phenomena such as a sundog or parhelion effect, where refraction through ice crystals creates bright spots and arcs around the sun, may have been unusually pronounced that morning. Another possibility is a meteor shower, in which fragments burn up in the atmosphere to produce fleeting patterns of light. Historians also point out the Renaissance fascination with celestial events, noting that interpretive biases at the time may have dramatized a more mundane phenomenon. Still, the intrigue does not end there. Proponents of extraterrestrial theories cite this incident as possible evidence of UFO sightings prior to the modern era. They highlight the meticulous details in Glaser's artwork, claiming that atmospheric illusions or meteor showers seldom produce the structured forms depicted. They also mention parallel accounts from Basel, Switzerland in 1566, where similar celestial battles were reported. Intriguingly, these episodes feed into a broader narrative that UFO phenomena are not merely a post-1940s phenomenon, but have recurred sporadically throughout history. Regardless of one's stance, the 1561 Nuremberg event remains a testament to humanity's innate tendency to interpret the unknown through cultural and spiritual lenses. In a world teeming with uncertainty, unusual celestial occurrences can quickly transform into omens, fueling imaginative or fearful responses. That morning's spectacle endures as a compelling reminder of the subjective nature of eyewitness testimony, as well as our collective capacity to ascribe cosmic significance to ephemeral phenomena. Whether heavenly sign or everyday optical event, it continues to provoke conversation, demonstrating that the skies, real or metaphorical, still hold mysteries we yearn to unravel. Venturing now to the farthest reaches of northwestern Australia, we confront another enigma etched into rocky escarpments by the region's aboriginal inhabitants. Known as the Wandjina, these striking figures painted on ancient rock walls display features that some observers interpret as hauntingly extraterrestrial. Portrayed in brilliant white, the Wandjina have large dark eyes and no discernible mouth, with halos or crowns around their heads. The effect is undeniably otherworldly, provoking various hypotheses about their origins or symbolic meaning. For the indigenous peoples, particularly the Wunambul Ngarinyin and Worora tribes, the Wandjina are revered as sky spirits and custodians of life and rainfall. Their creation narratives state that the Wandjina descended to Earth in the dreamtime, molding the landscape, overseeing natural cycles, and then merging with the land itself. Regular repainting of Wandjina images is a sacred responsibility. Allowing the figures to fade is considered dire, risking spiritual imbalance and environmental calamities like drought. In this way, the tradition underscores the profound relationship between land art and spirituality in Aboriginal culture. When European explorers first encountered these paintings in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, some speculated about connections to biblical angels or other religious parallels, reflecting an inability to comprehend the depth of Aboriginal cosmology. Later, with the rise of ancient astronaut theories, a new narrative emerged, suggesting that the Wandjina were in fact depictions of alien visitors. Adherents point out the bulbous heads, the unwavering gaze, and the halo-like element as reminiscent of modern grey alien archetypes. They also draw parallels to myths in other cultures such as the sky-born Anunnaki or the star-related figures in pre-Columbian American art, linking them all to a universal storyline of off-world intervention. However, anthropologists and archaeologists emphasize the cultural context of the Wandjina tradition. For Aboriginal communities, these figures are not visitors from space, but primordial ancestors, integral to the Dreamtime's spiritual tapestry. Their mouthless faces signify immense power, as the Wandjina need only thought, rather than speech, to effect changes in weather or living creatures. The luminous white coloring is associated with rain clouds and water, central to the cycle of life in a land that can alternate between monsoonal deluges and arid stretches. Importantly, local elders stress that any attempt to recast the Wandjina as extraterrestrials erodes the cultural authenticity of this deep-rooted belief system. Despite differing perspectives, the Wandjina art remains a cultural treasure, showcasing how ancient peoples preserved complex theological and ecological knowledge through creative expression. Visitors to the Kimberley region can admire the rock paintings in their rugged, natural settings, enveloped by the same landscapes the Wandjina are said to have shaped long ago. The images serve as living symbols that remind us of the richness and diversity of human spiritual life. Whether linked to cosmic visitors or unique to Aboriginal cosmology, the Wandjina stand as a powerful testament to the intersection of myth, environment, and societal values. Mysteries of cultural diffusion take on a startling form when we pivot to Renaissance Italy. It seems inconceivable that cocaine derived from the coca plant native to South America would appear in 17th century Milan, yet that is precisely the puzzle uncovered by modern scientists. The remarkable discovery began when 2 skeletons were excavated from a hospital cemetery. To everyone's surprise, trace amounts of cocaine were found in the remnants of brain tissue preserved inside their skulls. This indicates that these individuals somehow consumed coca-derived substances centuries before official records showed the plant's introduction to Europe. How did it happen? The simplest possibility involves the Spanish Empire's presence in the Americas. Spanish ships had been crossing the Atlantic since the late 15th century, and contraband or experimental imports were not uncommon. Coca leaves prized among Andean cultures for their stimulant properties could have been smuggled and then used as medicinal or folk remedies in Europe. Perhaps local apothecaries recognized some advantage in using coca for pain relief or endurance, but the trade never became mainstream due to logistical obstacles or moral restrictions. The significance of this discovery extends beyond pharmacological curiosity. It reflects the fluid, often clandestine nature of cultural exchanges, in a time when official trade routes were expanding rapidly but communication was still limited. Goods like tobacco, chocolate, and potatoes from the New World made a splash in European markets, altering diets and habits forever. Yet coca apparently remained mostly in the shadows, overshadowed by other commodities. Although some might leap to sensational conclusions, implying an entire underground network of coca leaf usage in Europe, scholars remain cautious. The sample size is minuscule, and we have no documentary evidence of widespread coca consumption. It could simply be that these individuals were outliers, maybe travelers or experimenters who had rare access to foreign substances. Nevertheless, the findings serve as a reminder that history is never static or monolithic. Many customs, resources, and influences likely existed in small pockets waiting to be rediscovered by the modern world. In a broader perspective, the detection of cocaine in centuries-old remains is one more example of how new scientific tools, such as advanced toxicology and DNA analysis, can unearth details that were long hidden. This synergy of archaeology and modern science reshapes our conception of global interconnectivity, demonstrating that the world of the Renaissance, though less technologically advanced, was far from isolated. There is a certain humility in acknowledging that our ancestors may have engaged in practices long unknown to official record keepers, challenging the boundaries of what we consider possible in historical timelines. Moving from perplexing substances to a monstrous image of folklore, we land in the domain of Japanese myth. War, famine, and societal collapse often spawn terrifying legends, and none in Japan is more chilling than the Gashadokuro, a colossal skeleton said to roam the countryside under the cover of darkness searching for the unwary. This gargantuan apparition supposedly forms when masses of unburied corpses, victims of warfare or starvation, coalesce into one wrathful being. Towering above treetops, the Gashadokuro materializes silently, yet the grinding of its massive bones is said to echo like thunder through the night. Stories paint the Gashadokuro as nearly invulnerable, capable of seizing lone travelers in its bony grasp to drain their blood. A personal encounter is described as inevitable doom, emphasizing the helplessness of humans against supernatural forces. While modern retellings focus on the creature's horror, traditional interpretations consider it a symbol of unrecognized suffering. The many souls lost in calamities do not find proper release, and their anguish transforms into a haunting presence that the living cannot easily ignore. One famous iteration of this legend is tied to Princess Takayasha, the daughter of the rebel warlord Taira no Masakado. In the aftermath of her father's defeat, she is said to have summoned a Gashadokuro to avenge her family, culminating in dramatic confrontations immortalized in ukiyo-e woodblock prints. In these artistic depictions, the enormous skeleton dwarfs human figures, imparting a potent sense of tragedy. Far from just ghost stories, such images reflect the very real historical trauma of the Heian and medieval periods when civil conflict and famine ravaged entire regions. Today, the Gashadokuro resonates within popular culture, surfacing in everything from video games to manga. Yet its enduring potency lies in its original role as a reminder that war and neglect breed sorrow, which can loom ominously over the living. In the modern era of advanced weaponry, the lesson seems even more poignant. Unaddressed violence leaves a legacy that might not manifest as literal skeletons, but it can haunt societies for generations. The moral is that communities should care for each other respectfully, burying their dead and recognizing the toll of conflict. Otherwise, the neglected and forgotten may rise in haunting forms, if not physically, then psychologically, to demand acknowledgement. Ultimately, the Gashadokuro stands as an example of how folklore channels communal anxieties and moral imperatives. These stories might have frightened children into avoiding nighttime wanderings, but they also served as social commentary on the cost of war and the significance of communal well-being. In that sense, the legend is not just about an otherworldly creature, but a deeper message about preventing the conditions that give birth to such monstrosities. From the lands of terror and myth, we shift to a breathtaking natural wonder steeped in legend, Fingal's Cave on the uninhabited island of Staffa, off Scotland's western coast. This geological marvel comprises towering basalt pillars formed by ancient volcanic eruptions, creating a massive cathedral-like entrance that resonates with the echoes of pounding waves. The cave's peculiar structure mirrors that of the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland, leading to the age-old story of how these two locations were once connected by a bridge of basalt, built by the Irish giant Fionn mac Cumhail Finn McCool. In the folkloric version, Finn intended to battle his Scottish counterpart, Benandonna, by constructing this causeway across the sea. Upon realizing that Benandonna was larger and more formidable than expected, Finn disguised himself, or was disguised by his clever wife, as a baby. When Benandonna saw the massive size of this infant, he panicked at the thought of how imposing the father must be, and fled back to Scotland, destroying the causeway behind him. What remain today are the symmetrical basalt columns at Fingal's Cave, and the Giant's Causeway physical evidence for the myth's comedic solution to a superhuman standoff. Scientists, of course, trace the phenomenon to the cooling and fracturing of molten lava during the Paleogene period, producing hexagonal columns that sometimes appear almost machined. Nonetheless, the grandeur of Fingal's Cave has captivated countless visitors, inspiring a vibrant artistic legacy. The composer, Felix Mendelssohn, famously transformed his 1829 visit into the Hebrides Overture, capturing through orchestral swells the cave's haunting reverberations and the crashing tides at its opening. Poets and writers, including Sir Walter Scott, have also extolled the cave's otherworldly atmosphere, describing the interplay of light and shadow within the basalt corridor. This coupling of geological splendor and mythic storytelling exemplifies how nature's wonders often spur us to craft epic narratives, ensuring these sites remain deeply embedded in cultural identity. While the legend of giants tearing apart a bridge might be whimsical, it also subtly conveys the powerful forces, time-tidal surges and volcanic activity that shape our planet. It reminds us that even seemingly eternal landscapes were once subject to the same dynamic upheavals that define Earth's geologic history. Moreover, Fingal's Cave invites meditations on the blurred lines between natural phenomena and mythic interpretation. For local communities who passed down these tales orally for generations, the causeway's eerie uniformity demanded an origin beyond mere coincidence. Giants were a convenient explanation, bridging the gap between tangible basalt formations and imaginative narrative frameworks. Today, while science demystifies the formations, many travelers still embrace the romantic charm of the old legend, standing in awe of the hexagonal pillars, enchanted by the synergy of nature's artistry and human creativity. The result is an experience that resonates, echoing Mendelssohn's compositions and the poetic accounts that have shaped our collective memory of this mesmerizing place. Human ingenuity, ancient technologies, and enduring curiosities. The continuing motif in our Odyssey is the boundless creativity and adaptability of the human species. This aspect comes into sharp focus when examining the living conditions and dietary habits of our ancient relatives. Evidence has recently emerged suggesting that Neanderthals, far from being mere hunters relying on big game, also consumed maggots, fly larvae, thriving on decaying meat as a nutritional supplement. Researchers studying the chemical signatures within Neanderthal bones uncovered unusually high nitrogen isotopes, which commonly indicate heavy meat consumption. However, subsequent experiments showed that maggots feeding on decomposing remains possess even higher nitrogen levels than fresh meat alone. This suggests that Neanderthals could have been opportunistic feeders, making use of all available resources to survive harsh Ice Age climates. In earlier conceptions, Neanderthals were depicted as dim-witted brutes stumbling across Europe. Modern archaeology and paleoanthropology have thoroughly overturned that stereotype, revealing a species well adapted to environmental challenges, capable of tool production, and possibly even engaged in symbolic or ritual practices. The idea of them eating maggots underscores their inventive resilience. Rather than letting partial carcasses go to waste when larger chunks of meat were scarce, they would exploit another protein source, albeit one most modern humans find repugnant. Not all scientists embrace this interpretation. Skeptics argue that the evidence is far from conclusive. Nitrogen isotopes may vary due to multiple factors, including the ecological setting, local climate, or other unknown dietary elements. Some maintain that if maggots were consumed, it was likely incidental rather than a systematic practice. Even so, the discussion opens new vistas about how ancient hominins coped with fluctuating resources and underscores the complexity of Stone Age survival strategies. On a broader level, the possibility that Neanderthals practiced such dietary innovation matches a recurring theme in human evolution: our readiness to adapt to changing ecosystems. Early humans and their relatives ventured into new continents, overcame the challenges of extreme cold, and incorporated unexpected foods into their diets. This primal flexibility may be the key to understanding how Homo sapiens eventually replaced or assimilated other hominin groups. The purported Neanderthal consumption of maggots exemplifies the extremes of resourcefulness that might have permeated everyday prehistoric life. This revelation also invites reflection on our modern dietary taboos. Today, insects are considered delicacies or staple proteins in many cultures, while others recoil at the thought. Could it be that our ancestors recognized the nutritional potential of larvae far before modern civilization began debating the merits of entomophagy? The notion ties neatly into the broader narrative of global food practices. What is deemed disgusting in one culture can be a delicacy in another. Thus, the Neanderthal maggot hypothesis not only expands our understanding of ancient diets, but also challenges our contemporary preconceptions of what is edible versus inedible. Human fascination with the night sky has persisted through every era, and one constellation in particular, the majestic Orion, has stood at the heart of numerous ancient myths and architectural alignments. Known by many cultures, these three bright stars of Orion's belt seem to form a line across the celestial dome, serving as navigational aids and spiritual beacons alike. Archaeologists and archaeoastronomers have long been intrigued by the fact that seemingly disconnected civilizations from the Nile to Mesoamerica constructed monuments that align with these stellar points. The Egyptian pyramids at Giza, among the most iconic structures on Earth, exhibit a correlation that some interpret as a deliberate replication of Orion's belt on the ground. Even though academic debate continues over how precise these alignments truly are, proponents argue that they mirror a cosmic blueprint suggesting the ancients were not merely stargazers, but star communicators. The association with the god Osiris identified with Orion further cements the idea that these constructions were intended to serve as a conduit between earthly life and the immortal realm. Meanwhile, halfway around the globe, the pre-Aztec city of Teotihuacan features an urban layout that also aligns conspicuously with certain prominent stars. Other cultures in Mesopotamia and beyond have records venerating Orion as well. Babylonian astronomers described these stars as signifying a heavenly sentinel, while the Maya integrated them into their elaborate calendar system. In West Africa, the Dogon people hold myths about Sirius, a star within the Orion-adjacent constellation Canis Major, and references to knowledge of a faint companion, star Sirius B, centuries before modern telescopes confirmed its existence. Some fringe theories go so far as to claim that the Dogon's advanced astronomical insights were imparted by space travelers. Critics of this cosmic puzzle maintain that star alignments can be found almost anywhere if one looks hard enough. The Orion correlation could be coincidental, emerging from selective data interpretation. They emphasize the importance of proven cultural context, finding references in texts, inscriptions, or enduring oral traditions that explicitly connect these structures to Orion. Nonetheless, the near-universal allure of Orion remains striking. Whether as a reference for planting seasons, a symbol of gods incarnate, or a cosmic signpost for travelers, the brilliance of Orion's belt has captured human imagination from time immemorial. This phenomenon raises profound questions. What drove so many distinct societies to focus their architectural and mythological energies on the same set of stars? Is there an underlying biological predisposition that draws our gaze toward particular celestial patterns? Could these societies have exchanged astronomical knowledge through forgotten trade routes? Or is it purely the result of convergent cultural evolution? While absolute answers remain elusive, the Orion mystery underscores the humbling truth that ancient humans were far from primitive in their cosmic awareness. They read the sky as a grand tapestry of gods, fate, and cyclical time, forging connections that endure as a testament to humanity's abiding wonder at the universe. The Sahara we know today is a boundless expanse of dunes and scorching winds. Yet there was a time, roughly 7,000 years ago, when this region blossomed with rivers, lakes, and verdant grasslands, a period often referred to as the Green Sahara. The fossil record abounds with evidence rock paintings depicting elephants, giraffes, and even domesticated cattle, plus archaeological sites brimming with tools and remnants of human habitation. Modern dryness can make it difficult to imagine how such abundant life once thrived in the now barren desert. However, as climate patterns shifted, monsoons receded, and the region began a transformation into the inhospitable landscape we see today. In recent decades, a particularly compelling discovery in Libya further rattled accepted timelines. Researchers uncovered the mummified remains of two women with genetic markers, unlike those found in nearby populations. Strikingly, their DNA contained traces pointing to Neanderthal lineage. This revelation suggests that in the heart of the Sahara, an isolated group with a distinct genetic profile persisted for centuries, bridging different human lineages in ways previously unrecorded. Such a finding challenges the traditional narrative that certain human subspecies disappeared or intermingled only in particular geographic corridors. Of course, scientists are careful to avoid drawing sweeping conclusions from these singular instances. Yet the discovery underscores a broader point. Our understanding of human migrations is always evolving. The drying of the Sahara likely forced many communities to relocate, seeking more hospitable lands. But some pockets may have endured, retaining cultural and genetic features that diverged from the mainstream. Rock art sites scattered across North Africa depict entire lifestyles, hunting scenes, religious or ceremonial gatherings that appear deeply entwined with water-based ecosystems, showing us how robustly life once flourished. That revelation holds ecological lessons as well. While we tend to compartmentalize deserts as eternally inhospitable, Earth's climatic history is filled with drastic transformations. Regions considered wastelands today might have once supported large populations. The interplay between climate shifts and human adaptation becomes crucial to interpreting archaeological data. Instead of imagining civilizations rising and falling in static conditions, we must see them as flexible, responding to each wave of environmental change. The unknown humans of the Green Sahara serve as a testament to human adaptability. Their survival achievements and eventual fading into obscurity remind us that no region is forever fixed in its state climates. Shift, resources emerge or vanish, and cultures morph to meet new realities. Through the remains they left behind, including distinctive DNA markers that reveal a genetic tapestry more complex than we believed, we gain a humbling perspective on the fluidity of human history. While traces of their existence may be fleeting, they hint at a global story in which every region, no matter how forbidding it seems now, may once have been a cradle of flourishing life. Beneath the bustling city of Nottingham, England, a place often associated with the legend of Robin Hood, sprawls a honeycombed labyrinth of over 800 man-made caves, forming the largest such network in the United Kingdom. Carved into the soft sandstone, these subterranean passages date back at least to the 9th century, serving a plethora of uses throughout the centuries. Some functioned as cellars, storerooms, and tanneries, while others became secretive hideaways in times of war or conflict. Various legends assert that Robin Hood himself might have used these caves as covert retreats, evading capture by slipping beneath the city's foundations. While we lack definitive proof linking the famed outlaw directly to these tunnels, the allure of hidden passages aligns perfectly with the rebellious atmosphere of the Robin Hood tales. Another theory claims the Knights Templar might have stashed treasures in the labyrinth's recesses during periods of religious persecution, although no conclusive evidence has surfaced. Regardless, these rumors and stories speak to the intangible magnetism that hidden places hold in the collective imagination. The labyrinthic corridors, silent chambers, and concealed entrances evoke an aura of mystery and potential discovery. Today, historical geographers like Scott Lomax have been on a mission to systematically map this extensive network. Using 3D imaging, ground-penetrating technology, and good old-fashioned exploration, they've managed to document many new caverns and passages that had been sealed off or lost to time. Lomax emphasizes that each cave can reveal unique insights into Nottingham's social and economic history, whether it's identifying the remains of medieval workshops or unearthing the living quarters of the city's poorest inhabitants forced underground by circumstance. Even with this progress, large portions of Nottingham's subterranean world remain unexplored or sealed behind modern developments. Some caves were intentionally blocked, either for safety or to deter illicit activities. Others were forgotten as the city expanded, overshadowed by new buildings and bustling streets. A few remain tourist attractions accessible through guided tours that provide glimpses of centuries of layered history beneath the urban surface. For all the romanticized tales and comedic banter about living under a rock, the hidden network of Nottingham is a palpable reminder that entire communities, sometimes marginalized by wealthier classes or shaped by political turmoil, could and did reside away from prying eyes. It's also a powerful testament to human resilience and ingenuity. When the surface was too dangerous, cramped, or regulated, people found alternative spaces to dwell and conduct trade. The labyrinth is a stone tapestry recording how citizens navigated issues of safety, economy, and secrecy over a millennium. From an underground perspective, the city's stories become more layered, showing how official narratives of prosperity and architectural triumph often rest upon hidden histories of struggle and covert survival. Shifting from hidden networks to small yet practical inventions, it might be surprising to learn that ancient Egyptians were among the first to develop breath mints. In a civilization famed for monumental temples and elaborate burial customs, the focus on oral hygiene might seem an afterthought, but it was quite significant. The Egyptians ground wheat on coarse millstones, leading to bread laced with gritty particles that could erode tooth enamel. Consequently, gum disease and halitosis were pervasive challenges. The remedy was ingenious pellets made by boiling honey and then mixing in fragrant substances, such as frankincense, myrrh, and cinnamon. Once dried and cooled, these tablets acted as convenient mouth fresheners, masking unpleasant odors and providing antibacterial benefits. While we may think of breath mints as a modern convenience sold in supermarkets, the Egyptians demonstrate that even in antiquity, people took pride in personal grooming. This mirrors their sophisticated knowledge in areas like mummification, herbal medicine, and body care. Their breath mint recipe, combining sweet honey with pungent spices, capitalized on both antiseptic and aromatic qualities. Honey's stickiness helped bind the mixture, while frankincense and myrrh, frequently used in religious ceremonies, contributed a pleasant and sacred aura to the pellets. This approach to oral care wasn't limited to one region. Ancient Greeks and Romans also experimented with mouth-freshening solutions, although they employed different ingredients and techniques. The broad interest in oral hygiene across cultures reveals a universal desire to maintain social decorum and personal well-being. Bad breath was not merely a private discomfort, but a potential social liability, particularly among individuals who held public roles or participated in ceremonial gatherings. Moreover, the Egyptian breath mints might have had additional benefits beyond mere fragrance. Some of the spices used, cinnamon for instance, have documented antimicrobial properties. This suggests that beyond mitigating odor, the mints could have slowed bacterial growth and infection rates in the mouth. While not a perfect substitute for modern dentistry, such measures likely provided some relief in an era without toothpaste fluoride treatments or effective dental tools. In a broader sense, these breath mints exemplify the Egyptians' resourcefulness and holistic perspective on wellness. Their civilization soared to great heights of architectural and intellectual achievement, but they also recognized the importance of everyday comforts. That they turned to nature's bounty, honey, spices, and resins, demonstrates a recurring theme in ancient innovations, leveraging readily available materials to tackle problems both grand and mundane. As we weigh the refinement of Egyptian society, these small tablets stand as reminders that behind the grandeur of kings and pyramids lay a vibrant culture concerned with day-to-day living health and even the subtleties of interpersonal etiquette. Safeguarding personal property has been a concern since humans began accumulating possessions, and ancient solutions to security needs were often remarkably sophisticated. One of the earliest known locking mechanisms is credited to the ancient Egyptians, dating back some 6,000 years. Constructed mostly from wood, these rudimentary contraptions employed pins that fell into holes when the lock was engaged. The key carved to match the pin's positions would lift them, permitting the bolt to slide open. Though simplistic by modern standards, the principle behind these pin and tumbler locks underlies many of today's lock designs. The Greeks and Romans, inheriting the concept from the Egyptians, refined it with metal alloys, creating smaller, more durable locks. The Romans further innovated with hidden locks, integrated into elaborate doors or chests, enhancing security and aesthetic appeal. Some of their keys doubled as wearable rings intricately wrought to denote status while also preventing loss. This personalization suggests that locks were not merely functional devices, but also symbols of power or social standing. Despite lacking contemporary mass production techniques, these civilizations managed to distribute locks across trade networks, meaning that a well-traveled merchant in Rome might use a mechanism not unlike one found in ancient Athens or distant Alexandria. In times of conflict, the importance of securing valuables, be it gold grain or sacred artifacts, became vital. Thus, the evolution of locks paralleled the growth of mercantile activity and the expansion of urban centers throughout the Mediterranean and Near East. Over centuries, various modifications introduced wards levers and other additions, all intended to thwart thieves who sought to bypass simpler locks. Yet even in those eras, lock-picking appears in historical accounts, underscoring the eternal battle between security and infiltration. Skilled artisans may have specialized in developing more complex locks to counteract sophisticated criminals, illustrating an arms race of innovation that resonates with the modern world's struggle between cybersecurity experts and hackers. In many ways, examining ancient locks offers a microcosm of technological development. They embody the intersection of creativity, commerce, and personal protection. The impetus to secure one's possessions fueled incremental breakthroughs that in turn shaped how trade and personal wealth were managed. Each new improvement didn't just reflect practical necessity. It also embodied status and knowledge exchange among cultures. From a historical standpoint, the evolution of locks underscores how even the most commonplace items can hold profound implications for the societal structures and daily realities of their time. Today, while we rely on electronic key fobs and biometric scanners, the foundational concept traces back to a wooden pin tumbling into a slot in ancient Egypt, reminding us how unbroken the thread of innovation truly is. As a final reflection on ancient ingenuity, let us consider the unusual array of sanitary practices that have intrigued historians, practices that make us appreciate the modern bathroom all the more. In ancient Rome, for instance, personal hygiene took on a communal dimension as many citizens frequented public latrines. Here, the tersorium reigned as the standardized tool for post-defecation cleaning, a wooden stick tipped with a sponge. Communal in nature, it was rinsed in buckets of salt water or vinegar after use, and then put back, a practice that would surely raise eyebrows today. While clearly an imperfect system with significant hygiene risks, it represented the best method available in an era lacking widespread soap or sanitary paper products. Even earlier, Greek societies employed flat stones called pessoi, sometimes etched with the names of unpopular figures, so that the user could symbolically wipe away their adversaries. By modern standards, both examples appear unsanitary, but they reveal how resourceful these civilizations were in addressing everyday demands. We also find humor in their creativity, particularly the notion of inscribing enemy names on pessoi to vent frustration or express satirical wit. Over time, broader solutions emerged. The Persian yakhchal, essentially a towering dome used to preserve ice and food in scorching desert heat, shows how advanced engineering might intersect with daily need. Residents of these hot climates did not simply resign themselves to the elements. Instead, they built elaborate structures, enabling them to savor chilled foods, including dessert-like offerings such as faluda. Meanwhile, The Romans continued to refine aqueducts and underfloor heating, elevating standards of urban living. These shifts speak to a universal desire for comfort, cleanliness, and convenience across cultures that on the surface appeared far removed from each other. Even medical necessities played a part in shaping daily life. Early dental instruments like the dental key, a horrific-sounding tool, provide insight into the lengths people went to for pain relief. Misalignment or decay might require an excruciating extraction. Practitioners inserted the metal claw around the tooth and wrenched it out with a twisting motion. In many ways, it's reminiscent of door keys or wrenches. Yes, it was brutal, but it also represented a determined quest to conquer ailments that plagued individuals long before the advent of modern anesthetics and antibiotics. In short, these glimpses into everyday antiquity remind us that the foundations of our modern amenities, plumbing, dentistry, refrigeration, and sanitation, emerged from a continuous thread of human innovation. While some of these prototypes seem archaic or shocking, each played a vital role in communal progress, step by painstaking step. They demonstrate that no matter the epoch, we have always aspired to improve our quality of life, harnessing whatever materials and knowledge we had at our disposal. As we conclude this extensive exploration, it is worth noting that behind every grand monument or cosmic myth, we often find equally fascinating stories of how ordinary people dealt with life's immediate challenges in inventive, if occasionally unsettling ways. Thank you for accompanying us on this journey through the corridors of time and across the geographic and conceptual boundaries that separate us from our distant ancestors. We have traveled from the remote mountain caves of China, where the enigmatic Dropa stones might suggest an otherworldly encounter, to Mesopotamia's cradle of civilization and the enduring question of whether the Anunnaki were gods or travelers from a distant planet. We have ventured into India's epic accounts of Vimana that float between metaphor and possible technology, pondering if ancient nuclear catastrophes or advanced weaponry left their mark in places like Mohenjo-Daro. Alongside biblical mysteries such as the Durupuna Formation and Hezekiah's Tunnel, we wrestled with artifacts like the James Ossuary, bridging the gap between written scripture and material culture. We have likewise paused to wonder at relics like the Stone of Destiny, reflecting on how simple objects accrue political and spiritual grandeur over centuries. The cryptic events in the sky above 16th century Nuremberg, as well as the striking Wandjina rock art in Australia, highlight our timeless fascination with celestial happenings and skyward figures, be they gods, ancestors, or extraterrestrial visitors. Meanwhile, the discovery of cocaine in Renaissance Italian remains and the terrifying Japanese Gashadokuro speak to how wide-ranging human experiences and beliefs can be. Whether it's a hidden labyrinth beneath Nottingham or the basalt marvels of Fingal's Cave, the world is replete with hidden chambers and geological formations that defy easy explanation and spark our creativity. The everyday items and inventions, the earliest locks, communal bathroom tools, innovative storage structures like yakchal, or even the Egyptians' mouth-freshening pellets, pull back the curtain on how people sought to manage daily challenges. Such practical solutions reveal a timeless drive, the quest for security, comfort, health, and social cohesion. It's often these seemingly mundane aspects that illustrate how close we truly are to our forebears. The modern world might rely on advanced electronics and refined sciences, but the underlying impulses to adapt, innovate and survive trace a lineage stretching back millennia. In reflecting on these varied accounts, we see a tapestry woven from countless threads of invention, myth, and the human spirit. While many questions remain open to debate, were the dropper stones genuine records of alien contact? Did advanced knowledge truly come and go in lost epochs of Earth's past? The allure of such mysteries is precisely that they push us to probe further. Each generation uncovers a bit more, reevaluates what it knows, and refines its theories. And yet some questions resist final resolution, reminding us of the vastness of time and the limits of our certainty. As we step back into our modern lives, let's carry a spark of wonder for these ancient puzzles. Whether we consider them literal truths or symbolic lessons, they underscore humankind's boundless capacity for imagination, resilience, and aspiration. In the grand scheme of existence, the unsolved often leads us to shape new stories, formulate new hypotheses, and take one step closer to understanding our place in the cosmos. With countless riddles still lying buried beneath deserts, locked within archives, or carved into the memory of starlit nights, our story of exploration is far from over. Once again, thank you for joining us in unearthing the intricacies of the past. We look forward to more journeys, more theories, and inevitably more mysteries that defy our ready explanations.